Think about this for a second. When was the last time you truly saw the middle child of history out in the wild? I'm not talking about a quick grocery run or a mandatory office meeting. I'm talking about the generation that used to be the lifeblood of the neighborhood, the pioneers of the garage band, and the architects of the modern social scene. If you look closely at the parties, the community boards, and even the digital town squares, you'll notice a gaping hole where an entire generation used to be. Something is shifting. A quiet, invisible migration is happening right under our noses, and it's not just because they're getting older. There's a much deeper, much more calculated reason why Gen X is scrubbing their calendars, silencing their phones, and retreating into the shadows. It's a phenomenon I call the Great Detachment. But the most chilling part isn't that they're leaving. It's the specific, unsettling realization they all had at the exact same time that triggered this mass exodus. I'll reveal exactly what that realization was by the end of this video. And trust me, it's going to change the way you look at your own social life. They were the latchkey kids. The ones who grew up with nothing but a bicycle, a set of keys around their necks, and a command to be home by the time the streetlights came on. They learned to survive without supervision, and now they're choosing to live without the spotlight. They aren't making loud announcements or posting long, dramatic manifestos about leaving social media. They aren't quiet quitting their jobs. They are simply gone. You might have noticed it in your own circles. That friend who used to be the glue of the group, they haven't checked the group chat in 3 weeks. That cousin who always hosted the holidays, they've suddenly decided to go off-grid for the season. It feels like a mystery, a slow-motion vanishing act. But if you think this is just about aging out of the scene, you're missing the bigger picture.
Gen X is currently trapped in what sociologists call the sandwich generation squeeze, but with a darker modern twist. They are the only generation simultaneously caring for aging boomer parents who refuse to let go of the past, and raising Gen Z children who are navigating a future that looks increasingly unstable. They are the bridge between the analog world and the digital apocalypse. They remember what it was like to exist without a camera in their pocket. And they are the first to realize that the connected world we were promised is actually a prison. Think about the pressure they're under. They are the IT support for their parents and the emotional shock absorbers for their kids. They are the ones holding the crumbling infrastructure of the traditional family together, and they are exhausted. But it's not just physical exhaustion. It's a soul-deep fatigue. From being the only ones who know how to fix a physical machine while being forced to navigate a world of algorithms. You might be thinking, isn't everyone tired? Sure. But Gen X has a unique brand of cynicism that acts like a superpower. They were raised on a diet of distrust of the government, distrust of corporations, and distrust of the happily ever after narrative. They saw the rise and fall of the American dream in real time, and now they've reached a point where they've looked at the current social landscape and decided the price of admission is simply too high. The social circles of the past were built on shared spaces, the bowling alley, the diner, the neighborhood barbecue. But as those spaces vanished and were replaced by digital feeds, Gen X tried to keep up. They were the early adopters of the internet, the ones who built the first social networks. But they've reached a breaking point. They've realized that being social in the modern age usually means being marketed to, monitored, or manipulated. So they're choosing the one thing that no one can track: silence. This isn't a midlife crisis. It's a tactical retreat. They are reclaiming their privacy with a vengeance, while younger generations are documenting every meal and every breakdown for the world to see. Gen X has rediscovered the intoxicating power of being unreachable. There is a certain mystery to them now. They don't want to be influencers. They don't want to be content creators. They want to be ghosts. But there's something even more unsettling beneath the surface. Have you noticed how the vibe of social gatherings has changed? There's a frantic energy now, a need to prove you're having fun rather than actually having it. Gen X, with their ingrained whatever attitude, looks at this and sees a hollow performance. They are the generation of Fight Club and the Breakfast Club. They value authenticity above all else, and they've realized that authenticity cannot exist in a world where everyone is a brand. They are retreating to small, tight-knit, underground circles. They're meeting in backyards where phones are left inside. They're having conversations that will never be recorded or uploaded. They are creating a shadow society that operates on the old rules, the rules of loyalty, face-to-face contact, and the no-drama policy. This leads us to a terrifying question. If the generation that knows how to keep the world running is checking out, who is left to hold the wheel? Gen X has always been the middle child, ignored by the media in favor of the boomers' wealth or the millennials' trends. But they were the ones doing the work. They were the ones who knew how to bridge the gap. Without them, the gap is widening into a chasm. You might feel a sense of unease when you realize your Gen X mentor or friend has become a phantom. You might try to pull them back in, to text them more often, to invite them to more events. But you'll find that the more you push, the further they recede. They aren't lonely. In fact, they've never been more content. They've found a secret that the
And this brings us to that one specific event, the trigger that caused this mass disappearance. It wasn't the pandemic, though that certainly accelerated things. It was the moment they realized that engagement is the opposite of connection. There was a specific day, a specific shift in the digital atmosphere, where the platforms they helped build stopped being tools for human interaction and started being tools for human extraction. Gen X, with their inherent skepticism, felt the shift first. They realized that every like, every share, and every social obligation was actually a micro-withdrawal from their mental health and their private lives. The realization was this: the world doesn't actually need them to be seen to function. They realized that for decades, they had been the ones providing the social in social circles, only to be exploited for it. So they decided to stop providing the fuel. They realized that the most rebellious thing you can do in a world that demands your attention is to give it to no one but yourself and the few people who actually matter. They've moved from the sandwich generation to the invisible generation, and they're doing it on purpose. They aren't disappearing because they've lost their way. They're disappearing because they've finally found it. They are moving back to the shadows. Back to the latchkey mentality, where the only person they have to answer to is themselves. The silence you're hearing isn't an accident. It's a choice. And as the world gets louder, faster, and more performative, that silence is only going to grow. The middle child has left the room, and they didn't even bother to close the door behind them. If you want to survive the coming changes and understand the truths that most people are too distracted to see, you know which button to click. Join the 1% who are actually paying attention by hitting subscribe. The world is changing, and you don't want to be the last one to realize why.